May 9th, 1945, 1:10 a.m., Moscow. The voice of announcer Yuri Levitan crackles over Radio Moscow. He speaks words the Soviet people have been waiting years to hear. Nazi Germany has officially surrendered to the Soviet Union. The Great Patriotic War, the bloodiest, most devastating conflict in Soviet history, is over. Within minutes, Moscow erupts. People burst into the streets in their pajamas. Strangers embrace and weep. 4 years of terror, sacrifice, and loss, over 27 million Soviet citizens dead, and now, finally, victory. The celebration begins immediately, and so does the drinking. By May 10th, just 22 hours later, the entire Soviet Union faces a new crisis. They've run out of vodka, completely, every bottle, every reserve, every drop in every store across the country. Gone. This is the story of the greatest party in Russian history, a celebration so massive, so overwhelming, that an entire nation drank itself dry in less than a day. The war that broke a nation, 1941 to 1945. To understand why the Soviets celebrated so hard, you need to understand what they'd survived. On June 22nd, 1941, Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in military history. 3 million German troops poured across the Soviet border. The goal, destroy the Soviet Union, enslave its people, and seize its resources. What followed was 4 years of unimaginable horror. The Battle of Stalingrad, the Siege of Leningrad, where at least 800,000 civilians starved to death. Villages razed, cities destroyed, mass executions, the Holocaust on Soviet soil. During the war, according to official data, the state lost more than 26 million people. Some estimates go higher, 27 million total, including 19 million civilians. Nearly 14% of the Soviet population was dead. Every Soviet citizen lost someone. Family, friends, neighbors. The entire nation was traumatized, exhausted, grieving. And then, at 1:10 a.m. on May 9th, 1945, it ended. Germany surrendered. The war was over. The Nazis were defeated. The relief was overwhelming. After 4 years of constant fear, sacrifice, and death, peace. Finally, peace. The Soviets didn't wait for morning to celebrate. They didn't wait for official announcements. They didn't even get dressed. General jubilation engulfed Soviet citizens, who went outside in their pajamas, embraced, and wept with happiness. Red Square filled with thousands, then tens of thousands. The celebration spread across Moscow, across the Soviet Union, from Leningrad to Stalingrad, from Minsk to Vladivostok. The entire country was celebrating. And drinking. Vodka, more than just a drink. Here's what you need to understand. Vodka isn't just alcohol in Russia. It's cultural. It's traditional. It's woven into the fabric of Soviet life. For centuries, vodka has been central to Russian identity. Celebrations, toasts, social bonding. It's how Russians mark important moments. And there has never been a more important moment than this. Thanks to the universal jubilation, even non-drinkers began to drink. People who never touched alcohol were taking shots. Because this wasn't just drinking. This was ritual. This was catharsis. This was a nation trying to process 4 years of trauma through collective celebration. My grandfather was a soldier in the Soviet Army during the war. To his death, he constantly reminded me, the only day I was ever blackout drunk was May 9th, 1945. That's the testimony from one Redditor whose grandfather lived through it. A man who survived the entire war, and the only time he drank himself unconscious was celebrating its end. But here's the problem. There wasn't much vodka to begin with. Stalin's vodka strategy. Wartime Soviet Union was not flush with vodka. Grain and starch were needed for food production and army rations. Resources were scarce. Everything was rationed. Except vodka production never stopped. Not completely, because Stalin understood something crucial. Vodka was essential to the Soviet economy and morale. During the famine of the early 1930s, writes historian Walter Moss, Stalin ensured that sufficient grain and potatoes were still available for vodka production, and vodka revenues in this period provided about 1/5 of government revenues. Read that again. During famine, when people were starving, Stalin prioritized vodka production, because vodka taxes funded 20% of the Soviet budget. It's tragic, it's pragmatic, it's Stalin. During the war, vodka served another purpose. In July 1941, the Red Army began issuing vodka to soldiers, although Stalin did not sign an official decree on this until August. Soldiers were given 100 grams of vodka per day and called it the Commissar's ration. About 3.5 ounces, daily, for millions of soldiers. Some believed that such a dose of vodka could reduce the feeling of fear and relieve tension before a fight. Others believed that alcohol adversely affected the outcome of the battle. But whether it helped or hurt, it was part of Soviet military life. Vodka was woven into the war effort. So by May 1945, vodka reserves were already low, wartime production was limited, civilian supply was restricted. The stores had some vodka, but not much. And then, 27 million survivors decided to celebrate at once. The 22-hour party. The announcement comes at 1:10 a.m. on May 9th, but Stalin delays his official address until later that day. He wants to ensure the surrender is properly ratified. The Soviet people don't wait. By dawn, the streets are packed. Red Square is a sea of humanity. People are singing, dancing, crying, embracing strangers. The emotion is overwhelming. And everyone is drinking. I was lucky to buy a liter of vodka at the train station when I arrived, because it was impossible to buy any later. There was no vodka in Moscow on May 10th. We drank it all. That's from an eyewitness account. Someone who arrived early, bought vodka immediately, and watched as the entire supply vanished. The celebration isn't just in Moscow. It's everywhere. Every city, every town, every village across the Soviet Union. Millions of people simultaneously celebrating, all drinking. The vodka disappears fast. Store shelves empty within hours. People share bottles, pass them around. Toast to victory. Toast to Stalin. Toast to the soldiers. Toast to the dead. Toast to peace. We celebrated Victory Day with my family, the owners' apartments, and neighbors. They drank for the victory, for those who did not live to see this day, and for the fact that this bloody massacre would never be repeated. The drinking continues through the day, through the night. By May 10th, just 22 hours after the announcement, every vodka reserve in the Soviet Union is exhausted. Before Joseph Stalin could even officially announce the German surrender, the country had already run out its alcoholic beverage of choice. An entire nation drank dry in less than a day. The dark side. But the celebration wasn't all joy. The chaos led to tragedy. One Soviet veteran recalls, "The Americans were already there, and there was a barrel of trophy alcohol. Everything is ready to celebrate the victory. I say, if I drink, I will be intoxicated, and I will not be able to choose anything. First I will choose, and then I will come and drink. We left to choose. Soon we heard a scream and noise. We come running, and they are lying there. The foam is coming from their mouths. Some have already died, and some have gone blind. It turns out that there was antifreeze on methanol in the barrel. They drank this antifreeze and began to die. 18 Americans and 22 of our people died. All this on the day of victory. 40 soldiers, American and Soviet, dead from drinking antifreeze on Victory Day, because in the chaos and excitement, they grabbed the wrong barrel. It's a horrific reminder that the celebration, while joyous, was also dangerous. People were drinking anything they could find. Industrial alcohol, homemade moonshine, whatever was available. The entire nation was intoxicated, grieving, celebrating, traumatized, all at once. The morning after, May 10th, 1945. The hangover sets in, not just individual hangovers, though those are severe. A national hangover. The vodka is gone. The celebration is over. And now the Soviet Union has to figure out what comes next. The stores are empty. The reserves are depleted. Production can't catch up immediately. For days afterward, vodka remains scarce. But the memory remains. As one reporter put it, I was lucky to buy a liter of vodka at the train station when I arrived, because it was impossible to buy any. Later, there was no vodka in Moscow on May 10th. We drank it all. We drank it all. 4 words that sum up the entire event. A nation so overwhelmed with relief and joy that they consumed every drop of alcohol in the country. What it means. The story of Russia running out of vodka isn't just about drinking. It's about collective trauma, about a nation that survived the unsurvivable and needed a way to process that survival. 27 million dead, families destroyed, cities in ruins, 4 years of constant terror and sacrifice. And then suddenly, it's over. How do you process that? How do you celebrate when you're also grieving? How do you feel joy when you're still traumatized? You drink, you embrace strangers, you sing in the streets, you toast to the fallen, you cry and laugh simultaneously. You do whatever it takes to feel something other than the horror you've been living through. The vodka shortage wasn't a failure. It was proof of how desperately the Soviet people needed this moment. This release, this collective expression of relief. They literally drank the country dry, because that's how much they needed to celebrate, how much they needed to grieve, how much they needed to mark the end of the worst chapter in their nation's history. The final toast. So here's what happened. On May 9, 1945, at 1:10 a.m., the Soviet Union learned that Nazi Germany had surrendered. The celebration began immediately. 22 hours later, the Soviet Union had consumed every bottle of vodka in the country. Millions of people, billions of toasts, an entire nation drinking simultaneously. It's the greatest party in Russian history, and the fastest a country has ever drunk itself dry. Adolf Hitler was dead. The war was over. 27 million Soviets had died, and the survivors celebrated the only way they knew how, with vodka, tears, and overwhelming relief. By May 10th, the vodka was gone, but the memory remained. The day Russia ran out of vodka, the day the war ended, the day an entire nation needed a drink more than anything else in the world. And got one. Za vas, for you, for the fallen, for the survivors, for peace, every last drop.